The sun was setting when I arrived at the ruins of our village. The houses had crumbled into piles of mud and dust. Broken markets lay abandoned, the colorful cloths and pots scattered like forgotten memories. Smoke curled lazily from the rooftops, and the great iroko trees shuddered as black birds fled into the burning sky. Among the wreckage, a bronze statue of the Oba leaned, cracked and weary. Even the drums, once full of life, now lay silent. The only sound was the soft, restless whisper of the wind. Inside the war tent, Ologun sat alone. He was a giant of a man, shoulders broad, face marked with tribal lines, and his neck heavy with coral beads. Before him on the carved table lay Azamo's sword, still stained with blood, resting on a leopard skin cloth. Ologun stared at it for a long time, the flickering oil lamps casting deep shadows on his grim face. The air was heavy with his sorrow and anger. Word traveled quickly. I watched as a bloodied messenger, barely clothed, burst into King Edu's fortified camp, his face twisted with fear and desperation. He stumbled across the earth, scarred by many battles. Soldiers in red and white turned from their work, weapons still in hand, while a great bonfire nearby hissed and crackled, throwing long, restless shadows. When Edu heard the messenger speak the Oba's name, his reaction was swift and terrible. He crushed his carved wine goblet in one powerful hand. Dark red wine streamed between his fingers like blood. His face tightened with fury. The old wounds of betrayal reopened under the dim light of swaying oil lamps. It hadn't always been this way. I remembered a night long ago when King Edu, the Oba, and young Prince Obayuwana laughed together around a roaring fire. They shared roasted yams and palm wine, dressed in simple yet beautiful wrappers, their faces soft with kinship and trust. Behind them, loyal guards stood at ease, their eyes reflecting the warmth of that bond. But now, everything was broken. Princess Idia, torn between loyalty and blood, knelt alone in her shadowed room. She wept quietly, clutching an ivory pendant to her chest. The heavy drapes whispered with the wind behind her, and an ancestral bust seemed to watch, sharing in her silent grief. I was there when Ologun, heavy with rage, marched into King Edu's camp. His guards, painted like skulls, flanked him as he kicked up dust with every step. Soldiers stopped what they were doing, heads turning as Ologun approached. The crimson sunset bled into their banners, coloring the world in dread. That night, under the trembling torches, King Edu and Ologun stood face to face. They didn't need words. Their hatred flared between them like the fire that lit their hardened faces. Around them, their warriors held their breath, gripping their weapons tight. And then, the pact was made. With rough, bloody hands, they gripped each other's arms, sealing their alliance with blood. The warriors around them chanted in low, heavy voices, and the drums beat in time with the rising storm inside our hearts. Back in Adu's camp, blacksmiths and carpenters worked like demons. Siege weapons took shape, giant rams and fire rat stakes, the air thick with the stench of burning pitch and molten metal. The hammering never stopped. Meanwhile, Ologun trained his mercenaries, ruthless wild men who knew only the language of war. On the dusty field, they sparred, bleeding and grunting under his sharp eyes. Ologun moved among them like a hunting hawk, swift and merciless. A shadowed room, an old map was spread across a stone table. Two armies, marked by the signs of horned beasts and burning suns, crawled slowly towards the capital. Candlelight danced on the cracked animal skin, casting looming shapes of doom. Hidden among the bushes, one of our spies watched it all unfold. His body trembling, he clutched a message close to his chest, the terror clear in his wide eyes. The moon barely lit his sweating face as he prepared to run. Inside the palace, young Prince Obayuwana stood frozen as an advisor whispered urgently into his ear. Around them, the murals of our ancestors seemed to glare down, their painted spears accusing. Obayuwana's hands shook as the weight of betrayal sank into his soul. High above, on the palace balcony, the Oba stood still. He wore heavy robes of white and blue, crowned in coral. As lightning ripped the sky behind him, he didn't flinch. His figure, tall and unmoving, looked like a mountain facing the coming storm. Ologun, never patient, stood atop a mound, surrounded by blazing torches. His bloodied sword flashed in the light as he roared to his troops. His voice rose like thunder, shaking the ground as warriors beat their spears against shields, hungry for the battle that awaited them. Somewhere in the shadows, King Adu sharpened his blade. Alone in a shrine filled with ancestral masks, he worked methodically. The sound of metal on stone, a cold, steady rhythm. His eyes held nothing now. No laughter, no warmth, only the hard gleam of purpose. The armies gathered at dawn. The mist clung to the ground as banners snapped in the morning wind. Horns blared, drums pounded, and the earth trembled under the feet of thousands. On each side, the lion crest and the viper sigil faced each other, the air electric with violence. That night, fields burned. Scouts on horseback darted through the infernos, their shadows flashing in the angry light. Embers rained down like stars falling to earth. Farmhouses collapsed in the flames, their bones lost to the raging night. And as the fires raged and smoke choked the stars, only one truth remained. The land would bleed, the sky would weep, and nothing would ever be the same again.